I saw a little debate recently about whether you say it like the weekend or the weekend. So like, the weekend as in Saturday, Sunday, or the weekend, like I've been weakened by your punch to my face. I don't know what to believe anymore. So the Weeknd is an R&B pop artist who has been pretty significant for the 2010s, I'd say. He definitely brought out a style of R&B that I think ended up influencing a lot more artists than people probably realize. I mean, I think big hardcore fans of The Weeknd realize his influence, but I think the general audience, the general music listener who may just listen to the radio or whatever might hear Starboy or Can't Feel My Face or Blinding Lights on the radio probably don't quite realize his significance for the 2010s. And now we're carrying on through to 2020 with a new album here from The Weeknd. We haven't heard from the guy since that EP in 2018, I think it was. And of course, his full studio album release was back in 2016, so it's been a little while since we got like a fully released project from the man. I've always been quite a fan though. I've liked his trilogy stuff. I've liked a lot of tracks on each album released since then, even if they haven't quite followed the same path of what he was doing on those trilogy mixtapes. But once he started delving into the pop side of music, I was definitely fully on board with this fully realized Weeknd who just goes straight up pop album start to finish, even though he hasn't done that yet. But I'm still really holding on to that wish of hoping that he'll do it one day, because I think he'd massively pull it off. And After Hours isn't quite the album, as I've said, but it is an album that's definitely getting the most praise I think any of his projects have gotten so far. It seems to be this is the one. It seems to be that After Hours is the one. The fans are loving it. People that weren't liking The Weeknd before are loving it. And I will say that, yeah, I do like it, but I definitely have issues with it, and I'm not quite in the camp of loving it completely. I think for me, the biggest issue with this album is a lack of knowing its own identity. I don't feel like this album fully accepts what it wants to be. It bounces around between the standard R&B stuff that we've been getting from him, and then we're getting these synth pop tracks thrown in as well. I just don't know if this album is as consistent as it should be. I think this has actually been a problem with The Weeknd since Beauty Behind the Madness, though. I mean, I just think this lack of knowing where he wants to go. Does he want to be a pop star? Does he want to be this cool, nihilistic, bad boy R&B guy? And I still don't think The Weeknd knows himself that answer. I don't think he knows the answer to that question. We're getting these huge synth pop jams like In Your Eyes, Blinding Lights, Hardest to Love, which I think is some of the best tracks on the whole thing, by the way, mixed in with the trilogy era Weeknd. You get Escape from LA, which has this standard R&B sound that we've heard from him for years now, which is fine. I think a lot of people have latched onto that, and I'm just not sure if he's ready to let go of it. And speaking of that track, I think it's one of the worst tracks here, because not only is it just not enticing to listen to, the instrumental isn't very interesting to my ears, to be honest. But the other issue I think with this album is that he's not playing to his strengths vocally. I don't hear a good singer on this song. I just hear a guy that's singing in this really annoying falsetto the whole way through, and it isn't really that appealing to the ears. He falls back into his usual ways with lyrics about having sex with a girl and talking about how all LA girls look the same. It's a bit blech to listen to. This entire stretch of the track just really isn't very strong at all, and really is a completely easy skip for me. Like, I could quite easily never listen to this song again, and I'd be okay with that. And in terms of that falsetto issue I think he has on this album, he really goes in on it too hard a few times. The opening track as well, pretty underwhelming start to the album, I think. Definitely not the explosive, grandiose opener I think an album like this from an artist as big as this really needs. Just again, for me, not digging these vocals, and I'm not here to say that any time he goes into the high pitched voice that it's bad, but I think it's how he uses it. He goes a bit overboard with it at times, and tracks like this really showcase how it can become a bit of a problem, especially for me, because I think falsetto in general actually is not really one of my favorite vocal uses in music. I tend to really get quite put off by an artist who it was clearly a good singer and yet they go into this upper register for the entire song and it just really feels weird, especially from Abel. He can sing better than this. I think the chorus on Too Late though is pretty damn good, really shows how great he is at a hook and a melody. Like this guy, oh, he just has so many great hooks, especially on this album. Like the way he can, I don't know, the way he can just sing over any type of production. He can be produced. He can be on a track Metro Boomin, Daft Punk, and Max Martin, and he kills all of them. He kills all of them. Obviously, Daft Punk isn't on this album, but you know I'm talking about previous songs. And Max Martin, bruh, the potential, the potential I hear when I hear a Max Martin Weeknd collaboration. I'm just like, mate, why do we not have 14 tracks of this? Because these, by far, are the best tracks. Like, Max Martin's production with The Weeknd, it's amazing. Like, the teamwork, the music these two people put together, I'm just in awe of it. It's been going for years as well. He was on Can't Feel My Face, which I think is up there with one of The Weeknd's best songs. Like, a match made in heaven. Hardest to Love, one of the best tunes here. Love this track. Think his again, his singing on this track is fantastic. The chorus is great. I love the idea of the lyrics as well being like the hardest to love, because a few times on this album I would say The Weeknd kind of just generally speaks on things and just, you know, cliche references to being lonely and things like that. It happens on the first few tracks, but I think the idea of, you know, calling yourself the hardest to love is pretty poignant, and I think the way he sells it as well really works. It's emotionally like poignant while also keeping a strong tune, really. It's a shame that these lyrical ideas aren't always that strong though. Tracks like Snow Child, another one I would definitely say is an easy skip, just really doesn't interest me, especially on the second verse where he just seems to be speaking generally about things. He makes that Sway Lee reference, which is pretty lame. Talks about getting a record deal. I'm just not interested in this. It doesn't really match anything. It's not really there for any particular reason to me other than The Weeknd just kind of falling into his comfort zone of doing what he's always done. I would say a similar thing about Heartless in the sense that it does feel very familiar. It doesn't really feel like he's treading new ground with the lyrics. Honestly, he really has been writing very similar songs for his whole career now, and I'm happy to see how many people are loving this album after hours. But on a lyrical standpoint, like looking at the lyrics, you don't really see that much progression, I don't think. But at least there's a friggin' great Metro Boomin beat on this one. Like, holy shit, I can't really critique the lyrics that much when this beat is so fucking good. Like, holy shit, man, Metro Boomin is really, really a bloody strong producer. He has another track on here that comes directly after, a pretty good one, not as strong as Heartless though, definitely not. But I guess it's time to bring up the stretch of songs which I just think are easily the best moments on the album and really, really showcase how strong The Weeknd can be. It's track 9, Blinding Lights. I've already talked about this before in a video. I think it's a great track. And then right up until really the end, the closing track's pretty good, but like the tracks before that I think are even stronger. In Your Eyes is pretty cheesy, honestly. It just feels like an 80s ballad in a way, just the way it's written, and then the horns come through. It is kind of cheesy, but I have a soft spot for it, to be honest. Save Your Tears coming after that, another good track. Max Martin produced as well. You know, these tracks here are all the Martin tracks, and as well as Hardest to Love. But like, yeah, this little stretch I think really blossoms in the album. And then you get Repeat After Me, which is produced by none other than Oneohtrix Point Never. This guy's out here collaborating with The Weeknd now, and you can tell the complete change of pace that this track brings just by having a producer like Daniel Lopatin on there. I mean, really, again, kind of showcasing the potential that this could have in the future if these guys continue to work together. I think we could see even more fantastic music coming from them. And then After Hours, which was one of the singles leading up to the album, I think this track's really interesting. I think the structure of it's really cool. I think a daring single to release as well. I think it manages to blend the best of both worlds of The Weeknd, that pop side and R&B side, together to create a really good track. Like, you're getting this atmospheric instrumental, but you're also getting this really strong sense of melody, which, of course, I've said already, The Weeknd just has such a knack for. And yeah, a massive highlight for the album for me. So yeah, there's so much to praise on this album. Like, there's so much good coming out of it. And I'm just so pissed because there's so much that I could just throw away. Like, when I think about this album, like that second leg of the album, like that final stretch, is just fantastic. But some of the tracks coming before that, not that good. Because there are even tracks like Scared to Love, which I enjoy too. You could easily take this one straight out of the 80s, just like Within Your Eyes, like that same vibe to it. It also reminds me of Elton John at one point. His vocal melody really reminds me of Your Song by Elton John. Maybe if you listen to it again, you'll see which part I mean. Obviously, that track isn't the 80s, I know, but I'm just talking about that one specific part of the song that really sounds like Elton John to me. But regardless, I think this ends up being a really difficult album to score in terms of like an out of 10 rating, because look, I'm not gonna lie, I could skip like probably 5 tracks, but yeah, the rest of it I think is really on point. And even the good tracks honestly sometimes have their issues. Like I said, Heartless, not really blown away by that one apart from Metro Boomin's production, but I think he's still on a an upward trajectory, like in the sense that, yeah, sure, this album may be getting a lot of love, but I still think there's the best album yet to come from The Weeknd. I don't think this is it. I've already said this in the review earlier on, but I need to make this point again because I think it's pretty important, and I think he's just, again, too scared to accept that he wants to just go all out pop. I think he's too worried he'll alienate that fan base that want that R&B side to him. So he'll, drop a pop single, it'll storm the charts, he'll get a #1 like Blinding Lights, and yet for the rest of the album he can't just remain consistent with that. So he gives us all those other R&B tracks which are fine, but not always that strong. I think he needs to settle. He needs to settle in a lane. He's not really going all out for one side of him. He's given us both sides, and it makes for a pretty inconsistent album overall. So with that being said, I guess for me I would land on like a 6.5 out of 10. It's pretty close, like a 7, but the score really shouldn't matter. It's just the point of that this album is good, but it has flaws, and I think it really could have been a much stronger album if The Weeknd managed to tidy up that inconsistency. But I like it. I think Hardest to Love is great. I think it could easily be one of my favourites of the year. Same with In Your Eyes. I think that's a great track. After Hours, another great track. Like, there's so many great tracks, but I just can't say that they're same for the whole of the album. I don't think the entire album is filled with consistently great tracks. So hopefully I explained myself pretty well in this review. Hopefully you can get on board with what I'm saying and not get too mad. I'm sure I'll get dislike ratioed because that just seems to happen, but hey, what can you do? Let me know your thoughts on the album. Hopefully you enjoyed it more than I did. If you don't enjoy it as much as everyone else is enjoying it or whatever, just tell me your thoughts. Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for listening to what I have to say. I appreciate you taking on board my opinions. It's very nice to have a little fan base of people that care. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you and goodbye.